and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting over episode 15 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. If you'd like to watch along, start watching now. So Gendo and Futsuki start off by having a small conference with each other about their ongoing plots. They're slowly starting to weave things together. The Human Instrumentality Project, Adam, Ray. All these puzzle pieces fit together, but it's not entirely clear at this point. So now we cut to Kaji, and he's doing some sort of investigating, I guess. He's going to a building which he claims was the start of something 16 years ago, presumably in relation to the Evangelions. So things become a little bit clearer. This place called the Marduk Institute, of 108 associates, 107 have turned out to be dummy shell corporations. So even as Kaji delves deeper, he acknowledges that things still aren't quite making sense. So even as much as Kaji knows, the true nature of what's going on still eludes him. So back at the school, Asuka's trying to get Kaji's attention through dubious means. And she laments that Kaji is always busy, but given what we know about what he's doing, I'd be surprised if there were ever a time when he wasn't busy. So back in Nerve HQ, there's talk in the control room about who's going to be wearing what to the wedding. The pilots seem to be in a synchronization test, but rather than paying attention to that, Misato and Ritsuko are talking about what they're going to wear. Notably, the worst part about all these weddings to Ritsuko and Misato is that they have to keep paying to attend, and at the rate they're going to be the last two to get married. Everybody also seems fixated on tomorrow and what that day will hold. Apparently that's the wedding. Shinji's going to be talking to his father tomorrow, so that's always important. So now we get a little bit of interesting dialogue here between Shinji and Rei. Shinji says that the way Rei wrung out that cloth reminded him of a mother. And knowing what I know, this is some foreshadowing. Even so, even if it weren't, that would be a weird connection for Shinji to draw, I would think. So back at Misato's apartment, I guess things are somewhat tense. Misato refuses to let Asuka use some of her perfume, with the excuse that it's for adults, not for kids. Kids shouldn't be wearing that. Meanwhile, Shinji's sort of moping about having to meet his father. And he's pretending to be asleep when Misato checks on him. So it seems like Misato sort of knows that, and she gives him advice even if he were sleeping anyways. So tomorrow's finally come, and it seems like it's going to be a busy day for everyone. We get a little montage here of the wedding reception and the ceremony. It would appear as though that Kaji is late to the reception. Naturally, he was probably snooping on something. So, despite herself, Misato can't help but sort of fix up his appearance. I think that's another indication that the lady doth protest too much when she says she hates him all the time. So now Shinji and his father are meeting up together. And the meeting place is Yui's grave. So the two of them talk somewhat cordially. I mean, they're not overly friendly with each other, but they're not hostile either. I guess they wouldn't be at a place like this. So in the end, Shinji sort of stammers out, I guess, a goodbye, saying that he was happy that this could happen. And Gendo agrees. And while it's not the best display of affection between father and son, I guess it's better than Shinji and Gendo normally get. Back in Misato's apartment, Shinji displays a rare talent of being able to play the cello. Asuka compliments him, and she's being surprisingly friendly, but Shinji sort of downplays her compliments in standard Shinji fashion. He also mentions that he didn't stop playing cello because nobody ever really told him to stop, and he only started because a teacher suggested it. I think that gives some real insight into his character. Like, he really doesn't have any sort of drive on his own. So back with Misato, Ritsuko, and Kaji are hanging out in a bar, presumably after the reception. Misato leaves to go to the bathroom, and Ritsuko and Kaji just sort of reminisce about the past, when they knew each other in college. Now, interestingly, Kaji gives something to Ritsuko. And given what we know about Kaji, I think there's a good chance that it might have some sort of secret meaning or something secret to it. I don't think it's merely just a gift. Notably, Ritsuko sort of conceals whatever that item was in her bag. And she also leaves very shortly after. I think there really was something secret about that. And I guess, as an extra bonus, Ritsuko sort of gets to stick Misato with Kaji. Given what I know about the relationship, I'd imagine that Ritsuko would sort of tease Misato about Kaji like that. So Misato does what she normally does and overindulges in drink. Kaji is forced to carry her back home as she sobers up. So the two of them talk sort of sentimentally, but Kaji can't help himself but flirt. Misato sort of cuts to the heart of the issue, saying that Kaji reminds her of her father. And her father is an interesting figure in her life for reasons that I don't think have become completely apparent yet. So for Misato, her father is a complicated figure. He was very hardworking and spent all his time working, which Misato hated. But at the same time, he also sacrificed his life to save her. And now she's fallen in love with a man that reminds her of her father. The Misato is really starting to spiral in a self-destructive, self-pitying sort of mood. In some regards, she's not exactly wrong about what she's saying, but at the same time, I think she's being too harsh on herself. Notably, she also compares her cowardice and inability to face her issues with Shinji, which I feel like is kind of a low blow he doesn't necessarily deserve, but at the same time, it's not entirely unmerited. Speaking of Shinji, he and Asuka are alone, and Asuka is immediately trying to take advantage of the situation. So Asuka offers to kiss him. You know, they kiss each other and, do all that like teenagers are wont to do. But notably, Asuka mocks his reluctance. So this could probably be expected. It's a really awkward kiss. Probably not a very good one either. It also goes on for a really long time. So interestingly, Asuka reacts with disgust. Despite the fact that she was the one who initiated the entire thing. Strikes me as rather duplicitous behavior. So Kaji returns just long enough to put Misato down to sleep. Asuka tries to cling to him and entice him to stay the night, but he's not having any of it. Naturally, Asuka treats this as a rejection. I mean, that's not really what it was. Kaji and Asuka, they aren't in the same league, so to speak. So the next day at school, Ray is absent, and we get to find out what she's doing. She's hanging out in some sub-basement beneath Nerd. Underneath a bunch of pipework that sort of resembles a brain. She's just chilling in a tube full of LCL with Gendo. So something's going on here. Meanwhile, Kaji is attempting to access something. Misato catches him and puts a gun to his head. So it seems like she's suspecting that he is in fact a spy and is ready to settle matters if it comes to it. So Kaji divulges that for whatever else he's doing, he's also working for Gendo. And despite the gun being pressed to the back of his head, he opens the door anyways, thus revealing a terrible secret to Misato. It's a giant figure crucified and impaled with a spear. So Misato mistakes it for an Evangelion, but Kaji refers to it as Adam, the first angel. The plot begins to thicken in earnest. Alright, that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one.